Hey, leader, 10 years ago, we put out a book called Figure That Shift Out. We're celebrating the 10-year birthday with 10 stories of transformation of people who went through Figure That Shift Out and experienced a completely new level. They didn't get there by pushing harder in the pressure. They learned how to see clearly who they are in the best and worst of moments. We could say how they could relax into their brilliance. Listen in on these stories as you consider what might be possible for your own transformation. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Sight Shift Podcast. We're in a special series. Figure That Shift Out, the book, turns 10 in November. And so we're doing 10 stories for 10 minutes over 10 years of life change. And I get to introduce you to somebody that's become very special to me. Derek, Janney, thank you so much for being here, my man.
I'm happy to.
Dude, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do in the world,
Yeah.
and we'll give some context.
Well, I'm Derek Janney. I live in Orlando, Florida. As you can see, I'm a big time Dolphins fan. You see that in the back. And so that sort of it sucks for me, but I still am a Dolphins fan. But I, first and foremost, I'm a child of God. Then I'm a son, and I'm a dad to two great kids. And I try to be a great friend to my friends and lead those around me. I had an opportunity to have a roofing company here in Orlando, started about 20 years ago, and got to build it up to be quite successful. And somebody saw value in it, and I got to exit about 3 years ago. And so that's been a big part of my journey. But now I'm an investor, I'm an entrepreneur, and really trying to serve at the local church and just give back the talents the Lord's given me the best way I can that I learned in the marketplace and bring them to the church. And I'll walk young guys along who are trying to get better. So that's sort of Derek today.
Awesome, man. And I have to say this, like all we do with people is so often helping discern what is great over and above the good. So
Mm.
you and I didn't wake up this morning and we're like, am I going to go get coffee or am I going to go rob the gas station? It was like
Right.
that wasn't a challenge for us. And this is something I really want to highlight. And we've had people in this series from way back, and we got a couple of people that have come through in the last year or so. And right from the beginning, when I've been around you, like you love people. You have highly developed interpersonal leadership abilities to speak to a room like you're just speaking to one person, and to speak to one person like you're just speaking to one person. It's exceptional. So why for someone like you who has this leadership ability, who has this deep awareness, who can connect with people, what would motivate you to even want to go through Figure That Shift Out?
Well, I'll tell you, and just be real vulnerable and open with everybody, which I think is important. You're gonna learn if you've done figure that shift out. No proving, no hiding. So nothing I'm gonna tell you today is to prove, and I'm not gonna hide from the truth.
Mm,
So I have two very good friends, one of whom is going to be on this podcast. One's a very successful attorney here he went through, figured that shift out, then has taken his company through. Chris and the team's training at Sight Shift, and they've seen successful results, numerical growth in the company, but not that, the life change. And so I remember Kenworth Reeves and Mike and Ardella, shout out fellas. They told me, hey, you got to go through this. And I'm like, man, I've got a coach that the company that I sold gave me, and why don't you guys do it first? Because I wasn't really enjoying the coach I had. Hopefully he doesn't see this. I was like, I don't want another one. And so a year later they said, hey, we all get together, and they said, dude, you have to do it. And I said, all right, well, I gave you my word. Told me, and I said, why? And they started to talk about the life change, and I'll talk about some of that in a minute. But my friends, number one, trusted friends who walked through this with Chris, and I personally, with my own eyes, saw the change in them.
mm,
And then I was unique. I was in a unique time in my life. I was in a transitional phase. I'd sold my company. I'd gone through a divorce about 6 months prior to, I think, Chris, roughly, I was about
mm.
half in year one, let's say. And your identity really you start to question your identity. I'm not running my company anymore that I built from the ground up over 20 years. I'm not the CEO. I was called the president, but I didn't call any shots. I didn't know who I was. going through a divorce and trying to have two young kids, and that was all new and that wasn't fun. So I always say one of the greatest things that ever happened to my life happened. Got to sell and do really well. And here I'm going through a divorce. And sort of also the selling of the company was sort of like a divorce with my company.
Mm.
So by the time the guys got to me, I was like, I've got to do it. You're 100% right. And I really wanted to understand who I am, who has God called me to be. And I didn't know anything about proving and hiding until I got into this. But when the guys were sort of talking about it briefly, I realized I got to do this. I got to do this.
Man, so glad you did. So glad you did. And you emulate for me some of the most favorite people I've coached because there's going to be a chemistry and an affinity for me when somebody's an entrepreneur and a visionary, and that's my wiring. And I was just looking at yesterday a picture of necklaces I was making in the ninth grade when I had a necklace jewelry business.
I love it.
But
I'd like to see one of those necklaces
dude,
next time around.
I will share that. I will share that. But that's not enough. Like there has to be someone who's willing to step in and like re-examine everything and really be willing to go through that place of what if there's some unlearning? What if there's some things I think I already knew, but I really never experienced like in a
Yeah.
transformative way as deep as what's possible? And you stepped in and did that work. I mean, I have seen people push it back. I have seen people put their toe in. And then there are
Mhm.
sometimes people like this, I like to think about it this way, that dive in, the 12 foot in, they're in the deep, and they swim down to the drain and open that up and find a whole new world.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I felt like right from the beginning, you were really locking in on how transformative it could be. What was some of what you saw in the process or right after
Yeah.
that allows you to have that same experience your friends did?
Yes, I would say in my situation, desperate times call for desperate measures. And I was desperate for change.
Mm.
I was desperate to get to the next level. I was willing to do whatever it took. When I put my mind to something, I'm going to chase it as hard as I can. And I knew that I had some unhealthy patterns I had just developed. My drive wasn't there. I just wasn't the same Derek that I had been. But I didn't want to be the same Derek that I had been before.
Mm.
I wanted to level up.
Mm.
And I knew the first week we got into the program, Chris always jokes, I showed up, I canceled on our first meeting. So, but that would have shown you where I was at in my life at the time, right? I've spent all this big amount of money. I didn't even show it to the first meeting. That's how scatterbrained I was. But I remember I showed up and I remember the first lesson. And Chris always says, all right, we're gonna pause there. Any questions? And I'm like, no, but I know what I'm about to get into.
Mm.
And I was sitting there, I could actually get emotional thinking about it.
Mm.
I just thought, man, if I'm gonna do this, I gotta go all in. And it's gonna hurt. It's gonna be a little bit painful. But any way we grow and I talk about the gym, to grow your muscles, you've got to put them through pain.
Mm.
And to grow Derek Janney as the man that I wanted to become, I knew I had to go through it. So every time you would ask that, I would just be like, no, I don't have any questions. I understand the assignment. I'm with you. I'm going to do the work. And I would devote time to do the work and understand it and then search my soul,
Mm.
make sure. As I didn't want to, I wanted to squeeze every single thing I could squeeze out of, figure that shift out. I mean, squeeze everything out of it. And so because of that, I did understand every single day I would walk into a meeting, I would be asking myself, are you proving, are you trying to prove who you are? Because of that, I'll tell you one thing I did. I got off of social media completely. If you've ever been through a divorce, I hope you never have to. You want to prove to everybody that you're okay. You want to prove to everybody I'm a great dad. I'm doing just fine. And I got off social media because I'm like, I'm just using this platform to show off, which a lot of people do, but in my instance, it was very unhealthy.
Mm.
So I said, I'm out. I never got back on a day since because I knew it was one of the greatest tools I was using to prove. And then the hiding, it was that was a harder one. You'd be like, how'd you hide this week? I'm like, well, some of those things I don't even want to share on here, but I'm like,
Mm.
I knew where it was and I would tell Chris what they were. But I still look through that filter, Chris,
Mm.
every day.
Yeah.
Still there. I'm not in Figure That Shift Out, but I've moved on to more and more coaching with Chris, all the way down to figure that parenting out, figuring that culture out. Um, when we're going to do figure out discipleship out soon. And there's all these things that it all comes around our identity and who we are. And whenever I understood my fears, it would make sense that my number one fear is fear of being a bad person. And second, fear of not being needed, thinking about what I had just gone through and really started to understand that I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person. I'm the man that God made me, and Chris help me understand this is what I see that you are. And I would believe it, and I believe it still today. And so I walk around, post divorce, I was trying to hide from everybody. I would go to different churches every week just so I didn't have to have accountability. And now I walk into church, I'm a worship leader at my church. I'm serving the Lord proudly because my pain, my past is not my future. And my pain that I went through, I can help people walk through this tough journey because I figured that shift out.
Man, thank you. I mean, just so moving to hear a man of
Thank you,
action
brother.
who commits. And I love it because people are like, why does this work? And it's like, well, because it's based on ancient wisdom. Like, proving and hiding is one of the most ancient ways to look at how to replace the leadership mistake you make under pressure. We could use the word temptation, how to replace the temptation with truth. And over and over and over again, it's so fun when we just say, look, you don't even have to come to this from a standpoint of any kind of certain worldview or conviction. Is there a better list of human qualities than the fruits of the Spirit? Is there a better list of human behaviors than the Beatitudes? Like, show me something better than that. I haven't found it. So how can we become those kind of people? And we're never going to do it perfect. I don't do it perfect. I still prove or hide. There's still moments I lead for my own validation, but you inspire me. Thank you for being here and
Praise the
sharing
Lord,
your
man.
story. And look forward to hearing how this encourages other people wherever they find
Yeah.
it. Derek, what a gift.
Yeah, I would just say this, guys. If you haven't gone through the program and you're watching this, you'll see a lot of other folks that are going to be going through this program. As a leader, one of the greatest things I've ever done is connect with Chris. But I've had the opportunity, because the Lord has blessed me, to put some other guys through the program. I fell I don't even know I got to put through, and to see the change in their life and what it's done for them has been more rewarding to me than what it did for myself. And I use the same things. I disciple two guys. I use the same principles. I don't use the book, but the very same things, Chris, that we went through, I'm using as we're going through Romans and Mark. I'm throwing some things in here and there. So I would just encourage you. It's worth the investment. It's worth the investment for your team, for the people you love. And thank you, Chris, for being a big part of my second phase of my life.
Honored, my man. Thank you. What a treat. Peace out.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for listening in as we dove into the story of transformation. As someone went through Figure That Shift Out, we're celebrating 10 years, 10 stories, and I don't want it just to be something you listen to. Explore what might be possible. Imagine how far you might go in your leadership. And join one of our Figure That Shift Out coaching groups, work with one of our certified coaches. I look forward to hearing about the transformation that you go through as a result of Figure That Shift Out.